Madam President, I'm glad to join Senator Thune in proposing these two important amendments, and also to join him in the overall point we ought to be focused on, which is economic opportunity, economic growth. How do we get people into the pathway of more opportunity for them and their families? Private sector job creation should be the #1 domestic goal of America today, and frankly, it should be the #1 domestic goal of everything we do, whether it's in a budget, in an appropriations bill that deals with any kind of domestic policy. We ought to be thinking, how does this impact private sector job creation? How does this impact economic growth? How does this impact opportunity? And what do we do to change our society for the better, not the other way? You know, clearly, I think we all appreciate the fact that Americans are more generous and giving to religious organizations and charities than anybody else in the world. My belief is that there is no country that comes anywhere close, and charitable giving isn't just money given by the top earners in America. It's given by some families who every week have to stretch and strain to make the contribution they want to make at their church that Sunday, to make the contribution they want to make to the Girl Scout activities, the Boy Scout activities, the YMCA or YWCA in their community. Nobody does this like we do it. And so I'm proud to join Senator Thune as he works on these issues. We've worked together for a long time, and Senator Thune's always been one of the critical advocates of our charities, as well as those families that work hard and create a small business or a family farm or a ranch, being able to pass that along to the next generation. Let me first talk just a little bit more about charities. You know, the ability to voluntarily come together and do things is provided in the First Amendment. It's not just an amendment that protects speech and religion, but it protects association, it protects people coming together and making things happen in their community that wouldn't happen otherwise. Americans give to these things like nobody else would every day. Our religious institutions, our charities, our hospitals, our museums, and others come together to take private resources and meet a number of community needs that are met in the best possible way by people who are doing that through a charitable effort. Feeding the hungry, caring for the sick, serving the poor, educational institutions of all kinds, undertaking critical research, money that goes to either help operate or actually support museums and parks. These are all the kinds of things that Americans do because they give to charity. Now, these things are so often done better than government bureaucracies would achieve this goal. Cheaper, more effectively, more reasonably, and we need to do everything we can to continue to do that. In 2011, Americans gave nearly $300 billion to charitable causes. 75% of that giving is done by individuals. Of the 41 million American households that itemize on their taxes, where you can specifically see that they did this, 86% of those households take advantage of the charitable contribution as they calculate their taxes. Now, the vast majority of people don't give to charities for tax break reasons, but anybody who's ever raised any money. I was the president of a Southern Baptist university for 4 years before I came to Congress. And every university president I know knows a little bit about raising money, and every one of them knows that every contributor isn't motivated by the tax code, but the tax code has impact on whether you meet your goals or not. Because some contributors are, and the size of that contribution matters as it relates to how they can leverage, frankly, the tax code in a way that makes it easier for them to give more to the things they care about. We want to be sure that we're doing what we can as we try to grow the economy, to actually understand that an awful lot of our economy is in the private sector. About 1 out of 10 jobs are in the public, in the charitable sector. 1 out of 10 jobs in the charitable sector. When you restrict that charitable sector, you restrict people from doing what they would do otherwise. $9 billion was mentioned by Senator Thune already. $9 billion of $300 billion, does that sound like a lot? It sounds like a lot if you're the kid that got the last scholarship. Sounds like a lot if you're the park that doesn't get the new playground equipment because the local Kiwanis Club couldn't quite get to the goal of what they wanted to do in your community. $9 billion is the add up any charity you give to. In all likelihood, when you look at your charitable contributions and add all of them up, they all raise collectively less than that $9 billion. Of course it makes a difference, and it's the difference in whether you get there or not. The nonprofit sector employs 1 out of 10 U.S. workers, providing almost 14 million jobs and paying almost $600 billion in wages and benefits. It's about exactly the same in our state, and this is a part of who we are that we don't want to discourage. There is a reason in the American character that we give more generously to charitable causes than anybody else in the world. Let's not walk away from that. This amendment will ensure that the limits that the budget of the majority would place on charitable giving don't go toward just more government spending. If we want to have that discussion about how we might cut tax rates and encourage the economy, that's one discussion. But if the discussion is let's discourage people giving to charity so there'll be more money for the government to spend, I just say that, Madam President, that's the wrong discussion we need to have. Do not increase government spending at the expense of America's churches and charities. And of course, the death tax, small businesses, family farms, ranches, they've all paid taxes on everything they've got. And they've paid taxes on everything they've got lots of time. The income tax, the annual property tax, families working together. We all can think of an example that know anything about small businesses. Everybody can think of one example, if not 100, of the family working side by side. And frankly, by the time the parents leave this earth, it's really hard to determine who created the wealth. Was it mom and dad, or was it son or daughter standing right there beside them in the grocery store every day, or working with them on the family farm and ranch? In our state, in Missouri, we have more than 100,000 individual farms. It's the second highest number of farms in America. They're not the biggest farms in America or the biggest ranches in America, but we have more of them than any other state but one. Those individuals, those families have done what they could to try to create opportunity and a livelihood, and they'd like to pass that along. And what is wrong with that? Clearly, the point we're at right now with the tax at the time of death is better than it's been in a while. I suppose not better than the 1 year that there was no death tax, the 1 year that we had no death tax. And that was the ideal that the government should try to achieve again. But I'm pleased to join Senator Thune in this effort. I hope we will do what we can to encourage families having businesses that they can pass along to, not have death a taxable event. There are plenty of taxable events in life without having death as a taxable event. And I want to thank again Senator Thune for his long advocacy of eliminating this unfairness in our tax code. I've been glad to join him in debate after debate over the years on this issue. But let's not move forward thinking that we're doing the right thing by doing the wrong thing as it relates to family farms and businesses. Also want to say as I conclude here, Madam President, I'm going to be offering an amendment on the carbon tax as well. We shouldn't have a carbon tax because The carbon tax that's anticipated in some of the language of this budget raises utility bills, and who is impacted most by a higher utility bill? Madam President, it's the most vulnerable among us. It's the family that's the last family to get the new refrigerator. It's the family that's the last family to get the better insulated windows. It's the family that's the last family to get more insulation in their ceiling. All of the things that we do that raise these utility bills have a real impact, just like whenever we're doing things that raise gasoline prices. Last person to get that new fuel-efficient car, the last family to get that car is the family that can least afford to see what happens to their utility bill or their gasoline cost. I am opposed to this kind of tax being passed along to people who have a hard enough time paying their utility bill for the kind of engineering that this would require. So whether it's the carbon tax or the death tax or a tax on charitable giving, let's not do the wrong thing here for the sake of more government spending. Let's do the right thing for jobs and American families. And Senator Thune, is there anything you want to say in conclusion on these amendments?